So I got into an argument on the internet, and I needed to just I wanted to address what it is that I said. I said the reality is that capitalism never would have naturally invented the internet on its own. It was not obvious then how much the technology was going to change the world. And then I get, oh look, unfalsifiable religious nonsense as a dismissive to this and everything. But I'm somebody that likes to know about the intersection of science and not science, well that too, but technology in particular and history. And the thing is that Clifford Stoll from this article, he was not a minority opinion. He may have thought that the tide was turning against his point of view quite a bit in 1995 and everything, and that everybody else was going in the other direction. But actually, he was less alone in what he thought than he believed himself to be. The modern, this article was written back in 2015. It was just a point and everything that the 25 years ago, from 20. So that's more like 35 years ago at this point. As far as this one was, most of us grew up with it. Internet, AOL Instant Messenger, I see you. It's important to remember that 35 years ago, the internet was still in its infancy. Yes, it's grown fast. We have access to almost every bit of information we'll ever need, and can video chat with virtually anyone on Earth from every part of the world. But it's still just a baby. To put that in perspective, 35 years in the same amount of time between 25 years is the same amount of time between when Ford started and when they released the Model A. Now, nearly 80 years later, well, that would be 90 years now, we have self-driving cars that are more like computers than what was produced back then. In other words, there's a significant amount of innovation ahead. Our little baby internet is like a car with the top speed of 60 miles per hour, the Ford A. Even though we've made it this far, when it was invented, there was a handful of people, and actually there were far more of them and we realized there was a fad like Beanie Babies or No Fear T-shirts. And so to celebrate our baby's 25, and this is longer, I'm going to share with you a Newsweek article from 1995 that was written by one of these naysayers. Spoiler, the author's article, Clifford Stoll, predicts that the internet will die after 1996. At the time, Stoll was living in Silicon Valley as a technology author and columnist for Newsweek. In his article, Stoll claimed that the internet will never work because hardware and software will top out in the mid-90s, and thus the internet will never get any more user-friendly or portable. Also, it is different and scary. Stoll, who lives in Silicon Valley, has seen the outcome of this prediction and has since commented on his 1996 article of my many mistakes, flops, howlers, and a few have been as public as my 1995 howler, wrong. Yep, now, whenever I think about what's happening, I temper my thoughts. Maybe wrong, Cliff. You can read the entire article along with his recent comments, but here are my favorite lines. On e-commerce, we'll order airline tickets over the network, make restaurant reservations, and negotiate sales contracts. Stores will become obsolete. So how come my local mall still does more business in an afternoon than the entire internet handles in a month? On e-books, how about electronic publishing? Try reading a book on disc. At best, it's an unpleasant chore. Newsweek, the truth is no online database will replace your daily newspaper. On crowdsourcing information, Wikipedia, lacking editors, reviewers, or critics, the internet will become a wasteland of unfiltered data. You don't know what to ignore. On the internet's portability, and you can't tote that laptop to the beach, yet alone Nicholas Negroponte, director of MIT Media Lab, predicts that we'll soon buy books and newspapers straight over the internet. Sure. Stroll is around. Well, here's his Wikipedia page if you want to look him up. Below is the entire article. Hype alert! Why cyberspace isn't and will never be Nirvana. After 2 decades online, I'm perplexed. It's not what I haven't had a gas of a good time. It's not that I haven't had a gas of a good time on the internet. I've met great people and even caught a hacker or two. But today, I'm uneasy about this mostly trendy, oversold community, the internet. Visionaries see a future of telecommuting workers, interactive libraries, multimedia classrooms. They speak of electronic town meetings and virtual communities. Commerce and business will shift from offices and malls to networks and modems, and freedom and digital networks will make government more democratic. He says, baloney, do our computer opponents lack all common sense? The truth is, no online database will replace your daily newspaper. No CD-ROM can take the place of a government teacher, and no network will change the way the government works. Consider today's online world. Usenet, a worldwide online bulletin board, allows anyone to post messages across the entire nation. Your word gets out, lead blocking editors and publishers. Every voice can be heard cheap and instantly. The result is every voice is heard. The cacophony more closely resembles citizens' band radio, complete with handles, harassment, and not anonymous threats. When almost everyone shouts, few listen. How about electronic publishing? Try reading on a book on a disc. At best, it's an unpleasant chore. My myopic glow of a clunky computer replaces the friendly pages of a book. And you can't tote that laptop bag to the beach. When Nicholas Negroponte, director of MIT Media Lab, predicts that we'll soon buy books and newspapers straight over the internet. Sure. What the internet hucksters won't tell you is that the internet is one big ocean of unedited data without any pretense of completeness. Lacking editors, reviewers, or critics, the internet has become a wasteland of unfiltered data. You don't know what to ignore and what's worth reading. Logged on to the World Wide Web, I hunt for the Battle of Trafalgar. Hundreds of files show up, and it takes 15 minutes to unravel them. One biography is written by an 8th grader. The second is a computer game that doesn't work, and the third is an image of a London monument. None answers my question, and my search periodically is interrupted by messages like, too many connections, try again later. Won't the internet be useful in governing? Internet addicts clamor for government reports, but when Andy Spavano ran for county executive in Westchester County, New York, and he put every press release and position paper onto a bulletin board in that affluent county with plenty of computer companies, how many voters logged in? Fewer than 30. Not a good omen. There have been there are those pushing companies into schools. We're told that multimedia will make schoolwork easy and fun. Students will be happily learn from animated characters while taught by expertly tailored software. Who wants teachers when you've got computer-aided education? Bah. These expensive toys are difficult to use in the classroom and require extensive teacher training. Sure, kids love video games, but think of your own experience. Can you recall even one educational film strip of a decades past? I'll bet you remember the 2-3 great teachers who made a difference in your life. Then there's the cyber businesses. We promised internet catalog shopping, point and click, where we order online tickets over the network, make restaurant reservations, and regulate sales contracts. Stores will become obsolete, and how come my local mall does more business in an afternoon than the entire internet handles in a month? Even if there were a more trustworthy way to send money over the internet, which there isn't, the network is missing a most essential ingredient of capitalism: salespeople. What's missing from this electronic wonderland? Human contact. The fawning techno bubble about virtual communities, computer networks isolated from each other from one another. A network chat line on a limp substitute for meeting friends over coffee. No interactive multimedia display comes close to the excitement of a live concert, and who'd prefer cybersex to the real thing? While the internet beacons brightly, seductively flashing an icon of knowledge as power, this nonplussed lures us to surrender our time on Earth, a poor substitute for it as it is, a virtual reality where frustration is legion and where holy names of the education progress, important aspects of human interaction, and relentlessly devalued. Stoll is the author of Silicon Snake Oil, Second Thoughts on the Information Highway, to be published by Doubleday in April. Years after his famous prediction, Stoll was a good sport about it and wrote to the Next Web. He admitted that he messed up. But see, the thing is that capitalists largely were of the same opinion as him. People with deep pockets and lots of money to invest in things pretty much agreed with him, which is why so many of them why the executives behind Blockbuster famously didn't buy into Netflix when it came about. It's why a bunch of these people didn't buy. A lot of people made big bets against cyberspace and the internet, and they lost majorly in doing so. They didn't take Netflix seriously, and now it's a giant behemoth that has literally crushed, Blockbuster into dust. Hollywood Video, it doesn't exist anymore. Does anybody even, Unless you have a long-term memory, do you even think about them? Unless you've been around on this planet anymore. It's like we have to explain to the kids that we used to go to a video store, and you used to have a clerk that maybe they became familiar with your taste and they would make recommendations to you and everything, but you would you would check out movies regularly at the local video rental stores that were around, and you had to drive to the place to go check the movies out, because they're not going to know anything about what life was like back then. And the thing that gripped me about what it is that I said is that the attitude of capitalism in 1995 was the same as him. There were a bunch of guys at these companies, making tons of money who didn't see EverQuest coming. They bet against it. They thought it was, EverCrack, as the joke went, and that these people would never use the internet to coordinate, to, come together and form a community and everything. And the things that happened in that corner of the web would never happen because there weren't enough geeks. They didn't see them all, coming together from every corner of the country and to form one giant internet community. They didn't predict that. They didn't see that one coming. And my point about all of it is that in 1995, the capitalists did not see the internet coming. They didn't put money behind it. They didn't think it would get this far. Now, a couple of them, like eBay and PayPal and others, I'll give you, they started to bet in the early days on this stuff, and we still use them today. They're still around and all not and whatnot. But my point to defend the argument that I was making is that capitalism, the way it was going in reality, never would have put serious money behind the internet, and so we have the government to thank for the internet and the technology behind it. That's the reality.